On today's show, the Yankees dropped the finale to the Twins in frustrating fashion, and I will try not to curse when I talk about it. New rules should be coming to MLB in 2023, and we'll let you know what to expect next season when the vote passes this afternoon. Plus, a preview of the extremely important series against the Rays, which begins tonight, and a member of the last Yankees dynasty is being honored tonight. So get ready, because a new Locked On Yankees is coming up next.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, Yankee fans. Welcome to Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Stacey Gotsoulias, and I'm joined by my co-host, Abby Mastracco. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms, including Apple, Odyssey, Spotify, and Stitcher. You can watch and subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up button to like our videos and the bell so you're notified as soon as our videos go live. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Happy Friday, Abby.
Is it a happy Friday for you, Stacey? He really wanted that sweep. But at the same time, you were also talking about four-game sweeps are very difficult and you felt bad for the Twins. How's your mentality now after the Twins finally got that win?
I would have preferred it to be like if the Twins won like 7-1, like if it was out of the Yankees' grasp at the end, but it was right there for the taking, and something happened in that bottom of the ninth that made me very angry last night. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but it was just a frustrating game because the Yankees had chances. The Twins were really giving them a lot of chances to come back in the game and to pull ahead in the game, and the Yankees couldn't capitalize on the Twins making those mistakes. But I did see a tweet from someone that said it's just unbelievable to them how the Twins just almost forget how to play baseball when they're facing the Yankees and make all these mistakes. And it's just, that's what the frustrating thing was, because as you said, and as I said yesterday, 4-game sweeps are hard. I wasn't going to be really angry if they did, because it's just a hard thing to do. But the fact that the game was there and they could have pulled it off in the bottom of the ninth and then it didn't happen, that's what's frustrating about it. But good for the Twins. You know, they won a game. Yay, good for them. So they were happy about that, I'm sure, because 4-game sweeps are embarrassing for the team who gets swept in 4 games.
Well, Aaron Boone has talked so much about how the Yankees are never out of games. But I feel like that was sort of a trend in the first half of the season before this, summer slide that they've been on, because they were winning a lot of one-run games, 2-run games. Now there's been some regression to the mean where some of those games that maybe they probably pulled out earlier in the season, they're not capitalizing on the same mistakes that they were able to earlier this season. It's
Right.
just not happening. They're not going to be able to. Some of those things were some of those trends were maybe a little bit unsustainable anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I guess we've talked about it since July. This is just sort of this is the team struggling to find its identity that it had previously.
Right.
Something's different with the team. We know it. And they're trying to regain what they had at the beginning of the season. And I think this loss sort of illustrates that exactly, because they were capitalizing on those things
Right.
back in May, June.
Yeah. And it's funny because they've gone from winning close games to losing a lot of close games. A lot of the games that they lose are 1 or 2 runs. And it's the same thing that you just said, where a few months ago, they would have been able to pull that off. And
Mm-hmm.
I was even thinking last night watching it, my thought was, well, it's the Twins. They'll probably pull this off and win in the bottom of the ninth. If it was any other team, I wouldn't have had that feeling. But for some reason, I was thinking maybe they could do it. And then they didn't. And my issue is Gleyber Torres is at bat. Michael Fulmer got 2 calls in his favor that should have gone in Gleyber Torres' favor. There was one egregiously bad. There was one that was borderline that could have gone either way, but there was one call that was egregiously bad. The ball was never near the plate at any point. Because, sometimes, it's fast when the balls come in. And you give the umpire the benefit of the doubt if the ball is kind of tailing or doing so. This ball was outside the entire time, and Larry Vanover was like, strike, and that was the moment I was like, oh, nope, he's striking out. I know it. I could feel it. I was like, this is where the game changes. This is where they're not going to pull this off. Because if those pitches were called strikes instead of, balls instead of strikes, Gleyber would have walked, Yankees would have tied, would have completely changed the game. And then, of course, he swings through a bad pitch for strike 3 and he strikes out. And that just changes the complexion of the game. And at that point, I was like, yeah, it's not happening. It's not happening. And that ump scorecard account.
Yeah.
Okay, so Vanover, impactful missed calls. Bottom of the ninth, Fulmer to Torres, 2-0 count, ball is called strike. Bottom of the ninth, Fulmer to Torres, 2-1 count, ball is called strike. So it should have been a walk, and that's just annoying to me, and you can't have that happen in a game. But, as we said, the Yankees had opportunities to pull ahead. They had opportunities to do things. They couldn't get it done, but you can't, I don't like when games are determined by bad calls by the umpire. That just drives me crazy. So again,
Well,
if it was a 7-1 loss, would have been fine, but something like this just makes me angry.
It's interesting that a game was lost on a call like that, considering today the competition committee is voting on new rules, but they're not voting on any rules that have to do with automated strike zones or robot umpires. When I looked at that, I thought like that would be something that maybe, I know that they've been testing that just like they've been testing these other rules. And I was a little bit surprised to see these 3. I guess I wasn't surprised to see these 3 in particular. I just thought maybe there would be something more about officiating, or maybe that's just because I work so much in the NHL where there's constant officiating controversies, and Gary Bettman does nothing about them,
Right.
And he never will. That's not true. Privately, he has actually acknowledged that there are some challenges to officiating that the league needs to figure out, because it's becoming more and more like glaring, like a big glaring problem, and it's preventing the game from like truly growing to a point where they would like to see it go.
Yeah.
And I think the same can be true. The same can be said in baseball, because baseball forever has been about the human element, and I don't want to take that out of the game. Nobody wants to take that out of the game. Granted, we have taken some of that away when it comes to replays. Every league has reviews and replays now. It's not like, this is anything out of the ordinary. The game's got to like advance as technology advances, but I thought there would be something on an automated strike zone, but
Yeah.
that's not happening. The rules that the competition committee is voting on today, in case listeners are not quite up to date on this: pitch clock, banning the shift, and bigger bases. These are all things that have been tested in the minor leagues. Personally, I'm for a pitch clock.
Yeah. There's some guys who take way too long.
Yeah. The shift, I don't think they should ban the shift. Honestly, it's like a competitive, learn how to throw down a bunt. It's not that big of a deal, but I know people hate the shift. Bigger bases, I was surprised to see that this one I was a little bit surprised about, because I know it's been tested. I just didn't know how much if it was like the tests had been sort of like run enough to be able to implement this at the major league level yet.
Yeah, I'm all for the pitch clock, because there are some guys that take so long between pitches and do things, and you're just like, I always joke about how that's almost like it could be part of their strategy, because they bore the batter so much that because they take so long between pitches. I'm trying to think of, it was Josh Beckett against, who was the other pitcher? It was another notoriously like slow working pitcher. And, you know, you're sitting there and you're just like, oh my God, this game is taking forever. And, you know, people always talk about how long the games are. And this will be something that will stop it. But we'll talk about that more. We'll get more in depth into these rule changes in segment 2. But first,
I don't have a great segue into this, guys. I'm just going to go for this. Summer's winding down. The nights are getting longer, but the breeze isn't the only thing that's getting stiff. That's right. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Guys, we all know that confidence can take you far in life. That's especially true in the bedroom, especially when it's time to step up to the plate. That's where Blue Chew comes in. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so you can plan ahead or be ready whenever the opportunity arises. The process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers. Once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. So no doctor's visits, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. With Blue Chew, men everywhere are excited to see the postman because when your package has arrived, your package has arrived. They always say first impressions are important. What about lasting impressions? It's time to get off the couch and get back to work. Your tool needs an upgrade. Head to bluechew.com. They say there's nothing sexier than confidence. Blue Chew can help give you confidence where it counts. So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, chew it and do it. We've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code Locked On at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo Locked On to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and for information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast. Thanks again for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. Subscribe now to Locked On Yankees on YouTube podcasts so you get notified when each episode premieres. And you get notified when we have to do fun ad reads like that one. I just think the copy, really, like, kudos to those copywriters, man. Like, look, I'm a writer in my everyday life, but I don't know that I could come up with something like that. They are much more creative writers than I am.
Yeah,
I shouldn't
I
say
have
that.
to say, yeah, out of all the live reads that we do, that's very creative. Yes, but you have to be with that sort of thing. So yeah, let's get more in depth into the rules that are going to be
so much better at segues than I am.
implemented. Okay.
You are so much better at that than I am.
So the pitch clock, I'm going to read this is from CBSSports.com, the article explaining the rules. Okay, so the goal with the pitch clock would be to cut out as much downtime as possible, especially when there aren't runners on base and the pitcher is standing on the mound holding the baseball. It's been tested in the minors for a few years, and there haven't been major complaints from anyone about it. And according to the report, the clock will be 30 seconds between hitters. The catcher must be in his box and ready with 9 seconds left on the timer, while the hitter has to have both feet in the box and be alert to the pitcher within 8 seconds of the clock starting. Pitchers can still step off the rubber, which would reset the clock to 20 seconds if there's a base runner and 15 seconds if there isn't, and they're only permitted to do this twice per batter. Now, I will say, when they were kind of testing out keeping the guys in the box, I'm trying to think if it was regular season or spring training. I think it was A-Rod's last year. And he did like a hop and a skip back into the box because he forgot about the pitch clock. And the way he did it, it looked like he was going to get in major trouble. Like he looked like he thought he was going to get into major trouble for not being back in the box. And I just found that so
There's been a couple big leaguers who go into the minor leagues and they forget that there's a pitch, like, for a rehab start. Like, it's just not, We're not used to it. I get it.
Yeah, and we're going to see a lot of that next season because these guys
Yeah.
aren't used to that, and you'll be seeing guys scrambling back into the box like, oh God, okay, I got to go back in. Um, okay, the shift. Here's my thing with the shift. I agree with you. Guys need to learn how to bunt. They need to learn how to not hit into the shift and kind of, go the opposite way. Some guys kind of oops their way into
Yeah.
opposite field hits. But the shift has been around long enough where these guys should learn how to do this. I mean, they used to shift on Jason Giambi all the time, and he's been retired how long now? So I think the problem that some baseball fans have with the shift is that it's constant now. Like teams are constantly
Yeah.
moving the fielders, but that's a strategy and it's a game.
Exactly. It's
And
a strategy, and baseball
yeah,
is about strategy. And I mean, I get it. I've talked to a lot of players who hate the shift. I've talked to a lot of, you know, outfielders who hate the way that they're positioned sometimes, and infielders who hate that there's like, four guys standing on the second base line, basically. It's like, but at the same time, like, I just don't understand. You don't see other leagues banning things that like actively taking away strategic maneuvering.
right,
Like you don't see football eliminating the wildcat or something like that.
right.
Like I'm trying to think of something comparable. That's banning. I know people hate the shift, but to me it just doesn't make sense to have a rule that actively like takes away strategic maneuvering.
Right. Um, I think, all right, from what this says, and this is kind of understandable because, the league hates that the batting average is down so
Mm-hmm.
far and that more guys are striking out. And, when you see a guy hit into the shift, you think to yourself, if the shift wasn't on, that would have been a base hit, and how many times that happens. And heading into last night, the league batting average was 243. And it said while a decent portion of that lag from high batting average seasons is strikeouts, the batting average on balls in play is 290. It was 300 back in 2000. The line of thinking goes that if defenses shift less, why did I say that so weird? More balls will find open spots, leading to a higher batting average on balls in play and more action on the field. Upon release of each pitch, there must be a minimum of 4 defenders other than the battery with both feet within the outer boundary of the infield dirt. Upon release of the pitch, there must be 2 of the 4 infielders on each side of second base. The team must designate 2 infielders for each side of second base, and they cannot switch. For example, a team cannot have a stud defender move back and forth based upon the handedness of the hitter. Because, sometimes teams will do that. I think banning shifts is dumb. I do think that maybe there could be, I don't know if they could limit it to a certain
Yeah,
number
I
in an
know.
inning, but I don't know.
It's just like but there are ways to get around the shift.
Right.
And there's some hitters that like look, their entire career has sort of been destroyed by the shift.
Yeah.
But like you at the same time, like you have to figure out elite athletes figure out how to adapt.
Yeah.
Like I just keep trying to think of like something comparable in another sport that they have like actively eliminated, and not for
Right.
safety reasons, because there's been
Right.
things that have been eliminated in hockey, football for safety reasons because of concussions and things like that.
Right.
But I can't think of something that has just been like a strategic that has just been eliminated because people don't like it.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know,
It's kind of strange for that to be because that really is the reason. It's like, hey, these guys don't like the shift, so we're gonna get rid of it. It's like, okay.
yeah. It's not
And
a safety reason. It's just that people don't like it. And we do want to see more. Fans want to see more action, right?
right.
If you talk to most casual baseball fans, because I know that diehard baseball fans are gonna say, "Who cares what they think?" Like a no hitter used to be such a rare thing, and it still is like a kind of a cool thing to see in person. I've seen 2 of them in person. I saw Matt Cain pitch a perfect game. I took my dad for Father's Day, and I'm never going to be able to top that Father's Day present. Man, like I set the bar way too high with that one.
Yeah.
So it is a really cool thing to like see and be a part of, but now it feels like they're happening all the time. We saw how many of them last year, like in the first half of last season.
And then almost no hitters. Like you're constantly seeing no hitter
Yeah.
alerts now into the 6th and 7th inning. And then they ultimately get broken up. But yeah,
Yes.
it's
But
not
if
as
you talk
special
to
as
a
it
lot
used
of
to be.
casual baseball fans, they're more likely to say, "Oh, I went to a game last week and it was so exciting because there was like a ton of home runs and there was like guys stealing bases and there was, awesome defensive plays." Like they want to see a lot of action.
Yeah.
And no hitters are really fun because sometimes there are really great defensive plays, but in the grand scheme of things, there isn't a ton of action. Baseball still has to cater to the casual fans. Every sport still has to cater to the casual fans because the goal is to get them to cross over from casual to maybe not necessarily like a diehard, but a fan who's watching every single night or who's watching, 4 or 5 nights a week and who's going to a lot of games and keeping up with their favorite players and actively, engaging and spending money. Let's put it that.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here. We need the baseball. Every sport needs their fans to spend money to keep these things going. But I get that the offense is down. We do need the offense to come back up a little bit. Hitters' careers are on the line here. I don't know that banning the shift is the way to do it, though. It just seems like a band-aid for some hitters, not all of them, though. And it's a band-aid for it's addressing a symptom, not the disease, you
Right.
know? Um, and it just seems silly. I understand people hate the shift. A lot of hitters hate the shift. People in like I've talked to a lot of guys within baseball. It's not just fans who hate the shift. It's still, but the fundamental, just banning something because you hate it, that's still like strategic. I just don't. I don't know. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
I can't quite connect the dots, I guess.
Right.
Maybe I'll change my mind. Look, I've been known to do that after talking to more people in baseball, and it's an issue. It's like something I haven't brought up recently with any players. It's something that I talked about probably. Let's see. I wrote a story on this when I was covering the Angels in 2014 because Albert Pujols was hitting into the shift quite a bit and getting shifted on quite a bit. So I
Right.
wrote about this back in 2014. I haven't really talked about it with a lot of guys like since that, at least not extensively. I've talked about it with them in passing. So
Right.
maybe if I have some more in-depth conversations, I can change my mind. But for now, the fundamental issue of banning something that is like eliminating some strategy from the game just because people don't like it. Just I don't for now I don't get it, but I would like to look into it a little bit further.
Right. And then the last thing, the bases are going to be bigger. And I love this. Okay. The bases have been 15 inches square on each side for decades, and the size will increase to 18 inches on each side. There are a list of reasons for the change, among them that players' feet are much bigger now than when they were when the bases were designed. Of course, because all these big, giant dudes
Because
who were over
yeah,
6 feet, over 6'5", with, I mean, yeah.
because the average size of the player has probably increased. Like all of a sudden, like I remember the Mets rotation when I covered them in 2017 was like the average size was like 6'2".
Yeah. Yeah. Like I always say this, I wish there was a way to bring someone like Phil Rizzuto back because he's been gone 15 years now. And for him to see these giants, like,
Yeah,
could you imagine him seeing O'Neill Cruz at shortstop? Rizzuto he would die again, like it would just be like, oh my God.
Sonny Gray is
So
like 5'10". He's still an anomaly on the mound
yeah, yeah. Like, Stroman's small.
because Marcus Stroman's
Yeah,
small.
Stroman also. I mean, he's built, but he's like my height. He's 5'9". Well, all right.
JP
When they say a
Garcia,
guy's 5'9",
he's undersized. I mean,
yeah,
he is, but like he wouldn't have been in like the 80s.
right, right. So feet are bigger now. Possibly increasing the action on the base paths, making it easier to steal bases or take the extra base on hits, and to possibly make it easier for players to stay on second and third in close plays instead of having long replays to see if a player barely came off the bag for a split second. So that's another thing that they're trying to eliminate, and that makes sense. All right, so what's coming up next? Oh, yes, the Yankees playing the Rays this weekend. It's a very important series. And
Crucial
also,
series.
yeah, and also Derek Jeter's returning to Yankee Stadium tonight. He's going to be honored with a ceremony about his Hall of Fame election. And we'll talk about that in a second. But first, betonline.net is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week's games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet online, where the game starts. So the Yankees and the Rays.
Bobblehead ready?
I know, it's all the way across my room. I was going to, if you're not watching on YouTube, I was going to hold up a Derek Jeter bobblehead. I also have one of those commemorative cups that kind of change when you turn it, and it's Derek Jeter swinging the bat, and it's kind of cool. I have that also. I have a whole shelf of bobbleheads, and one day I will make it my background, but the funniest thing about all those bobbleheads is they don't look anything like the players they're supposed to be. Because I used to have these on my desk at NBC, and one of my coworkers was like, wait, who's that supposed to be? I'm like, Bernie Williams. They're like, that's not Bernie Williams. I'm like, I know, it looks nothing like Bernie Williams.
Movies never do, though. Like, some of the statues in front of Staples Center, like, everyone loves to make fun of them because it looks like people just, like, coming out of the mud. And also they're just adding so many statues in front of Staples Center that I think it's becoming, like, comical at this point. And, like, you have to just keep adding statues of people that don't actually look like themselves. The Chick Hearn statue is good. I'll say that. The Chick Hearn statue is good. But some of these other ones, just a lot of statues that don't necessarily look. Gretzky's is okay. Maybe it's just the basketball ones that aren't good.
Yeah. My favorite thing of all time that I found out this year because of when I was preparing for my trip to Toronto that never happened, apparently they have a statue of, I think his name's Ted Rogers, Rogers Center.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have any statues of any famous Blue Jay players out in front of Rogers Center. So Torontonians do not like that at all. So Jeter will be at the stadium tonight. They're honoring him. And he put up a very cute video of himself in the car with his wife and daughters. And they were asking the girls questions about, what are you going to do at the stadium? Are you excited to go to the stadium? And what are you going to eat? And the girls answered hot dogs and ice cream. And I think it was the oldest daughter, going from how the voice sounded, because it sounded more like a 5-year-old speaking instead of a 3-year-old. And Jeter's wife was saying, yeah, we know how much you love hot dogs and this and that. And then at one point he said, are you going to come on the field with me? And she said something like, Daddy, I'm afraid I'm going to, you broke your leg and I'm afraid I'm going to break my leg like you did. And he's like, oh, no, don't worry about that. And I just thought that was so funny because she was nowhere near being born when Derek Jeter broke his leg in 2012. So it was just really funny to me that they know this about his career and that he's probably showed them highlights now, especially with that documentary and stuff. And I just think it's adorable that they now are going to realize how much people love their father.
Yeah.
That'll be
I think it'll, as they grow up too, it's going to like impress on them. Just it's tough because he's not playing anymore, but they'll come to realize just how much their dad meant to New York and how much their dad meant to baseball.
Speaking of tonight, the Jeter ceremony will be on Yes from 6 to, they're going to cover it from 6 to 7. It's not going to be that long. And then the game itself is on Amazon, which I know angers a lot of people, but it's on Amazon. So watch the ceremony on Yes, and then watch the game on Amazon. Now, we're not going to go into a full preview of this series, but we'll talk about the importance of it. This is the last head-to-head series between the Yankees and the Rays. And if the Yankees would like to have a bigger distance between them and the Rays, they need to win at least 2 out of 3 in this series to make it so. As I said on yesterday's show, even though the Yankees lost 2 out of 3 to the Rays last weekend, the last 2 games were close because we spoke about it earlier in the show. They were it was a 1-run loss, 2-1, and then they won 2-1. And it wasn't like, I didn't feel as if the Yankees were completely outmatched in the series, because I've had that feeling in other series of late. Um, so I actually have a semi-positive feeling going into the series, and I feel like the Yankees can win 2 out of 3 against the Rays. Now that I said that, they probably won't, but that's the feeling I have. So we'll see what happens with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's so
Famous last words.
oh, God. You guys can all blame me on Monday if things don't work out this weekend. But let's see. Wait, I haven't even looked at the standings because I just
The Yankees are 4.5 games ahead of
okay.
the Rays.
All right. So
6 games ahead of the Jays.
all right. So they're still that's in good shape. Yes, they can blow the division, and yes, they can blow that lead very easily. But it's better than being a half game up from second place, Mets. I love how no one in New York is talking about that, by the way. Everyone was paying more attention to the Yankees and then not realizing, oh, wait, the Mets are very close to blowing the division. And Ben Kback of River Avenue Blues joked. He's like, yeah, a couple weeks ago, everyone was like, oh, it's going to be a Subway Series this year. And now it's like, oh, God, both teams are collapsing. Oh, no.
Well, I don't think the Mets lost 3 in a row. I don't know that they're necessarily collapsing.
Yeah.
They did have some luck against Pitt. They beat Pittsburgh pretty good.
Yeah. I was surprised about the
The
Nationals.
Nationals, yeah.
Yeah,
I
wasn't really paying attention, but
they do have to sort of, both of these New York teams need to start beating up on some lesser opponents.
yes.
Because the Mets had a really good showing against the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Both of these
Right.
teams need to start beating the teams that they need to beat. So,
Right.
We've talked about it yesterday. It's going to be a really crucial series against the Rays, but then the Yankees absolutely need that series against Boston.
Yep.
They need to beat up on Boston.
And Pittsburgh. And
they've got to beat up on
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee's probably dead.
Yeah.
So they've got to get some wins against these lesser teams.
Yep. As I said yesterday, just win series. That's all you need to do. You don't have to sweep everyone. You just have to come out and play well. And yeah, the Mets kind of fall into the same trap as the Yankees. Now, they didn't against Pittsburgh, but they did against the Nationals, where it's not exactly like they play down to the competition, but they have that propensity toward not doing what they need to do when they need to do it against bad teams. And that's just a trap that both of these teams seem to fall into. So yeah, Yankees, Rays this weekend, very important, and we'll see on Monday how that goes. But for now, that's it for this episode of Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Remember, you can listen to this show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast. You can watch and subscribe to us on YouTube. Again, thumbs up if you like the video, comment, and click on the bell so you know when our videos go up. And if you're looking for something else to listen to after you listen to us, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022. It's an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, combines into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. One more thing, if you could be so kind, please rate the podcast and spread the word about this podcast to your fellow Yankee fans. We would really appreciate it. So enjoy your weekend, go Yankees, and we'll talk to you on Monday.